Chapter 37. Description of the Chavadi. I bow down Shri Ganesh, I bow down Shri Saraswati, I bow down the Guru, I bow down the family Dinti, I bow down Shri Sita Ramchandra, I bow down Shri Sadguru Sai Nath. Twice blessed is Sai's life, blessed is his daily routine. His ways and actions are wonderful and indescribable in eternity. Unfathomable are his true deeds, blessed is the cause of his life, twice blessed is his irresolute and story life of mighty resolves, which was like walking on the razor's edge. Sometimes he was intoxicated with divine bliss, sometimes he was content with self-knowledge, sometimes he was aloof from all his actions, such was his indeterminate state. Sometimes he was quite actionless yet not asleep, keeping in mind his aim, he always abided in his own self. Sometimes he would be as propitious as the ocean, but also pondless, unfathomable and deep, who can aptly describe his ineffable nature. He regarded men as brother and women as sisters and mothers. He was a perfect and perpetual celibate, as everyone was fully aware. May the understanding we received in his pious company remain with us undiminished until death. May our desire to serve him be abundant. Let our devotion be exclusively at his feet. May we see God in all beings and ever love his name. Those who endeavor to understand his every action were baffled at the end, could only be still and non-pulsed. Many people fight for joys of heaven. They extol heaven's greatness. They consider life on earth contemptible, since there is fear of death here. In a way, one assumes a form from the unmanifest, that is called the visible state. Again, one returns to the unmanifest state. This they call death. Unrighteous conduct, ignorance, anger, hatred, etc. are chains which fetter us to death. Those who can completely overcome them only can enter heaven. Heaven, what else is heaven? Detachment is heaven. Consider one's own Atma as the spirit that pervades the universe, excluding all sorrows. In that state, there is no cause for disease, etc., no worries, problems, pains, no hunger or thirst, and none has fear of old age. Where there is no fear of death and no prospects and prohibitions, life carries on without any fear whatsoever. That is the divine heavenly state, the same sense that pervades from Brahma to the animate, filling the movable and the unmovable alike. That same sense is also there in the other world as well as here. It excludes plurality. Although this principle is devoid of all attributes mundane existence, it appears to be non-Brahma to the individual soul, deluded by ignorance on account of the association with the limiting adjunctures. Brahma is something different from me and I am different. Those who believe in such discrimination are bound by laws of death. Death follows birth, and after death, rebirth. This interminable cycle of nature is the fate of those who think thus. What is the use of heaven, which is attained by the most difficult sacrifice, penance, and charity, but is devoid of the remembrance of Narayan's, the Lord's feet? We do not wish for a place in heaven where there is only sensory enjoyments. Of what use is it for us if it makes us forget Govind's, the Lord's name? Be it in heaven or in hell, the essential pleasure is the same. The pleasures of Indra and an ass is exactly of the same nature. Indra moves about in his pleasure garden as happily as the ass rolls on the rubbish heap. The pleasure of both are comparable. There is not the slightest difference. Why strive for a place from where one is born to come down once the accumulated store of merit has exhausted? It is better instead to be born on this earth. The greatness of this earth is unfathomable. Is that heaven important because one's lifespan there is of thousands of years? This brief span on earth is far better than that. In life which is transitant, whatever action is done, if it is all surrendered to the Lord, the person attains freedom from fear. Of what use is a place where the devotees do not listen to and recite God's name and Guru's stories, dance and sing to worship God? Knowledge acquired about the union of Brahma and Atma that is permanent and the means for achieving the very best, for that the best place is earth and not the heavens. Surrender to the Guru, body, speech, and mind, and the five pranas. The questioning intellect should be merged in the Guru, totally dependent on him. What fear of the world can there be after thus surrendering to the Satguru. And why unnecessarily worry about the worldly transaction when he is there to solve all problems? Where ignorance abides, there exists attachment, progeny, and property, and constant worries about the worldly matters, leaving not a trace of good thoughts. Ignorance is the root cause for establishing this plurality. Therefore, it is necessary to acquire knowledge of the Shastras in Sanskrit through a qualified teacher. Once ignorance is removed, even a trace of plurality will not remain and will release the person from the cycle of birth and death. This is caused by the knowledge of oneness. He who has even the slightest trace of separate identity will suffer the cycle of birth and death, for creation and destruction invariably follow that feeling. The good or the well-being is the subject matter of knowledge, undoubtedly, and where only the pleasant is the subject matter, it is definitely ignorance. The greatest fear in the world is that of death. To escape from it, hold fast to the Guru's feet, for it is he who will grant you unity consciousness. Where there is unity and plurality, there only such fear can enter. Therefore, where there is not even a trace of such fear, serve the feet of such a Guru. Adorn the forehead of such a Guru with sandalwood paste of pure love, and offer him the yellow garments of your devotion. He will show to his devotees that which pervades the universe. Offer him the throne of firm faith, decorate it with the right sattvic emotions, and bathe him with tears of joy. He will then be pleased. Put around his waist a grill of devotion, ward off the evil eye with salt and lemon, etc. Surrender yourself to him, and thereafter do his arti. The extinction or destruction of anything or any work is based on its existence. If an earthen pot is broken with a stone, then its form no longer exists. It does not mean that there is not a trace of the pot's existence. If the broken pieces of the pot are put together, then it can take its original form again. Therefore, that which is known as the destruction of the effect is really dependent on the permanent existence of the cause. Therefore, the end of the body of anyone results not in void. No action is done without a reason. What is imperceptible becomes perceptible because it is enjoined to truth always. This is well known through experience. The chain of cause and effect only displays the lesser and the greater degree of subtlety. In such a state, the gross effect is destroyed. What exists or remains is really the subtle cause. On the destruction of that also, there remains something still more subtler, where the cognizer reaches a state of cognizing all the senses, the mind as well as the intellect. In short, where the intellect comes to an end, there alone the concrete turns back into the abstract. Nevertheless, the existence of the cause that is the abstract cannot be clouded, as existence shines everywhere. Intellect gives support to desire. Therefore, immediately on its extinction, there appears Atma and the state of non-decay at the feet. Ignorance, illusion, desire, and action were really the main attributes of death. An aversion of all these bondage comes to an end. On the destruction of all bonds, Atma effortlessly manifests, just as the scattering of clouds, the self-luminous sun is revealed and shines. I am the body, this is my wealth, this is immense ego. There are the knots with which Maya ties our hearts, and which are the causes of all sorrows. Once, if this body dies, then another is acquired because of karmas to annihilate the seeds of those karmas. Then, if one fails to destroy those karmas, then another birth is certain. Once again, the seeds grow into a tree. The body is acquired because of the seeds of vasanas. Thus, this is an endless cycle till all the vasanas end. Eradication of desires from the very root will remove the knots of the hearts. Such a man becomes immortal. This is the teaching in the Vedas, a condition in which one has transcended righteous and unrighteous behavior as prescribed in the Shastras, which is called Vairagya. Pure destroys all acts of ignorance, and there is no place for death. Deliverance from vasanas brings about an union with Brahmanda, divine bliss, that which cannot be described in words spoken or written. Complete knowledge of Parabrahma is itself the absence of all evil, that itself is the ultimate achievement, is laid down in the Shrutis and the Smritis. Knowledge and experience of Brahma is the ultimate. This is the highest state of Brahman. What greater excellence can there be? All the sorrows of the Atma are crossed over. To completely cross the worldly ocean and reach the yonder shores, knowledge of Brahma is the best and essential means to attain everything. Have full faith in an absolute patient. They are the Uma and Maheshwar in manifest form. The Lord who pervades the universe will not be visible in your heart till he lays his hand of mercy on your head. Sainath, the Supreme Guru, whose words had unfailing potency, said, "What is needed is faith and a little courage, and the greatest glory is yours. All the world that is seen is after all unreal. It is unnecessary to accept this, to take the instance of things seen in a dream, which entirely vanish on coming to an awakening condition or state. So far as the keen of reason, intellect upon up to this only is the existential character of the individual soul. But that stage where there is no room either for existence or non-existence is really the state of truth. That is the highest soul. That which is devoid of cognition of sat and asat, etc., from any idea of gender, and is bereft of all attributes, is really the all-encompassing nature of the preceptor expressed in the form of different words. Atma is without any attributes, beyond old age, birth, or death. It is ancient and eternal, indestructible, and beyond decay. It is perpetual, unborn, ancient, all pervading like the sky, unending and indivisible, ungrowing and unchangeable. Then, who can describe that which is beyond words, without form, without being, beginning or end, unfathomable, imperishable, without smell, without taste, and untainted? Thus, this Atma, which is attributeless and invisible, is not known because of ignorance. Then remove this ignorance by knowledge. But do not ever call that Atma non-existent. How wonderful was that realized state of Shri Sai, which was his personal grandeur. Time the thief has snatched it away. Would it ever be seen again? Let us not bother about the devotees who are attached to money, progeny, wife. Even most emancipated yogis who came for darshan got deeply attached to his lotus feet. Blessed is the devotee who is in the world but detached from the bondage of all desires and deeds from the body and home. He who has Sai only as his object of vision, can he see anything else? Everywhere he gazes, he sees no place which is devoid of Sai. He who chants Sai's name and has love for Sai in his heart is always assured of his well-being and repose. Sai himself protects him. Same is the case from him who hears only Sai and speaks of nothing but Sai, inhales only Sai's fragrance and savours only Sai's name on his tongue. How wonderful was Sai's smiling visage, which granted the purest of happiness. Blessed and fortunate is he that saw it and savoured the nectar of his words. The store of our well-being and the source of our peace and happiness, he was full of discrimination and detachment, and ever alert from within. Just as a calf, though it has had its fill of milk, does not leave the mother's side, similarly the mind should be tied with a rope at the feet of the Guru. To attain the grace and love from the Guru, bow down in the dust of his lotus feet. Bear in mind his advice and experience it at every step. While engaged in sense pleasures to your heart's content, bear in mind the love for Sai, because that will be of help ultimately in achievement of both the worldly benefits and the spiritual goals. The colarium from one who has attained command over charms and spells shows the wealth that is buried under the earth to the one who is born with legs foremost, Payalu. Similarly, the dust from the Guru's feet gives the spiritual knowledge and scientific knowledge. Whatever are the characteristics of the Siddha should be the means for the seeker to learn with long practice and exercise. Clarified butter ghee can be made from milk, but if the milk is not made sour, there will be no buttermilk, nor clarified butter, because all these depend upon certain actions to be performed. Without churning the buttermilk, one cannot obtain butter, and unless the butter is boiled on the fire, tasty clarified butter will not be available. What is required is the power of previous impressions and intelligence on account of practice in the past. Without studies, there will be no purification of the mind, without which acquisition of spiritual knowledge is really unattainable. The mind needs to be purified. Then only can self-realization be achieved. So long as that stage is not achieved, do not give up devotion to God. One needs the foundation of devotion to God to erect the temple of self-realization, for the force fires of mukti, liberation, to shine, and the flag of asceticism to fly. Day and night the dogs and pigs wallow in the mire and eat excreta, etc., and eat the etc. They are enjoying the seen sense pleasure. Should it be the same with human beings? The human being should do penancy and achieve purification of mind, whereby the Brahma is attained completely. Such behavior in accordance with religion is needed at the outset, since rendered to sages becomes the abode for reverence, whereas sexual indulgence open the doors to hell. These are the words from the revered elders which need to be borne in minds always. One who conduct is always correct and good, who eats just enough to sustain his body and is not attached to home or wife, such a person is blessed and a sage. Those who can constantly meditate upon Sai without closing their eyes, Sai himself thinks them being obliged to them, see the wonder of this experience. Blessed the greatest chanting the Lord's name. Even the Guru then remembers the devotee. The meditator becomes the one meditated upon, both completely forgetting themselves. You are responsible for your actions. For me, I constantly dwell upon you. Many people will remember such loving words from Baba. We do not need the scriptures, just this one religious work on Sai is enough. Irrespective of the number of sins committed, he is our protector from all the difficulties. If it is not possible to read consistently the entire book, just concentrate and fill your heart with the chapters in devotion to the Guru. Listen to them every day as a rule. Read this biography regularly at any time of the day. Sri Hari, together with your Guru Raj, will certainly meet his devotee. Goddess Lakshmi will permanently abide in the home where it is read regularly. At least if 1 week's reading of the whole book is done, poverty will be driven away. Do not think that I am saying this because that will create doubts. Sai himself speaks through my speech. Leave aside troublesome imagination. Sai holds the treasure house of all virtues, the granter of liberation to his devotees. His stories destroy all the sins of Kali Yuga. Listeners should hear them. The bliss of heaven is a mere trifle compared with the story of such a saint. Who would ever care to raise his head and look there, leaving aside the prompt benefit of this true story? Happiness and sorrow are states of the mind. Association with the saint is always unchanging. It makes the mind one with the consciousness and leaves no room for pain or pleasure. Even Indra or Chakravarti cannot experience the happiness till the end of time, which the detached person sitting in solitude gets, or which a devotee gets in bhakti, devotion. Faith is very powerful. The intellect one has depends upon the action of previous births, but the destiny consequences can be easily avoided by a devotee by a support of the saint. Though you make indefatigable efforts, you will not be able to avoid the experience the fruits of karma. Karma, which has started bearing fruits since, is associated with a stage of unavoidability, making the disassociation from it truly impossible. The saints can foresee the consequence of fate and the unwanted pain or the unimaginable happiness which follows. Continuous chanting of your name is our hope, penance, and charity, and a visit to Shirdi from time to time is our only pilgrimage. Sai Sai is the name that we render, and it is the mantra to propagate all gods. This is our meditation and this is our repetition. Wholeheartedly surrender to him. His real worship is gluely less, loving relationship, then experience within yourself his inconceivable attainment. Enough of this long-windedness. We need something sweet immediately. All must be eager to hear the interesting story indicated earlier. Knowing the feelings, the eagerness of my listeners, I have made compact to the marvel of the story indicated earlier so as to preserve perfect tension. I, the lowliest, the slow-witted, ignorant of the most elementary knowledge of poetical grammar, am being made to write what Sai wishes me to write, while holding my hand. Who am I to write the story? If Sai has not given me the intellect, he tells his own story and he writes it himself. Thus, now to the story, refer to the earlier 2 earlier of the Chavadi, Handi and the Prasad as promised earlier. Listen to that narration. I shall also relate to the listeners similar stories or any other stories which I can recall. Listen to them attentively. Blessed is the marvel of the stories is sight. Twice blessed are the effects of listening to them. One can experience one's real self by meditation on them, which increases our devotion at Sai's feet. Now at first, the description of the Chavadi and then to give a general outline of the ceremony, Baba slept on alternate nights at the Chavadi as a rule. This routine of Baba of sleeping one night in the Chavadi and the next one in the one night in the masjid and the next one in the Chavadi continued regularly till the Samadhi. Later, from December 1909, Baba's worship in Chavadi, bhajan, etc. also began. Let me begin with description of the ceremony in the Chavadi to the best of my ability. May Sai give me the grace of enthusiasm and God will help me in completing it. On the night when Baba used to go to the Chavadi, the bhajan singing group came to the masjid and the bhajans were done for some hours in the courtyard of the masjid. Behind there was the beautifully decorated chariot. To the right was a small pedestal in which the scarlet vessel Tulsi was planted, facing which Baba was himself seated, and in the middle were the singers doing the bhajans. All the devotees, men and women, who had a great respect for devotional songs, came to the courtyard early in all readiness for bhajans. The sound of the bhajans swelled on the waves of various instruments played by the devotees such as tal, chipli, mridang, kanjari and ghol, while some bet time with their hands. Sai Samartha is the lodestone who, by his strength of the powers of attraction, dragged the devotees like iron filling at his feet without their knowledge. Torchbearer would light their torches in the courtyard. The palanquin was decorated there itself by some. At the gates stood the staff bearers ready to proclaim salutations repeatedly. At the road crossing corner there were arches, garlands, buntings, flags flew high in the sky. The children were dressed in new clothes and ornaments. Many rows of earthen lamps around the masjid brightened it. At the entrance, the courtyard, the horse Shamakaran stood fully caparisoned. In the meanwhile, Tatya Patil would come with a group of people. He would sit near Baba in all readiness to leave with Baba. Though Baba was ready, until Tatya arrived, he would remain seated in his own place, waiting for Tatya's arrival. Until Tatya Patil made Baba stand up, putting his hand under Baba's arm, then only Baba made ready to go to Chavadi from there. Tatya addressed Baba as Mama, mother's brother or maternal uncle. Such was their reciprocal love and affinity. It was beyond compare. He would be wearing his usual kafani and would place his satka under his arm. He would carry the chilim and tobacco and throw a cloth on the shoulder. When Baba was thus ready, Tatya would drape a beautiful sari embroidered cloth on his body and head, properly covering him. After this, Baba moved a little bit the front of the bundle of fuel sticks lying at the foot of the back wall with his right toe at its own place for a moment. Also immediately afterwards, Sai would extinguish the lamp that was burning there with his right hand. Then he would leave for the Chavadi. When Sai set off, all the musical instruments started playing. Fireworks were lit. Also powerfully illuminant lamps like offering to the gods, and the earthen lamps illumined the whole area. Some played the horns, some blew the large brass trumpets, some played the drums and the cymbals, and there was no dearth of people keeping time by clapping to the music. The mritan and the veena clanged amidst the loud shouting of Sai's name. In keeping with the bhajans, the men and women walked in rows, holding banners and standards, some of which had ego imprinted. The congregation moved, dancing, jumping with joy and singing bhajan. All the people were very joyous. They would leave with banners and standards in procession. The metal gongs and wind instruments made tumultuous sounds, along with those who made proclamations which, with hands raised to the ears, they were salutations, and the horse capered. Thus, with the reverberation, the musical instruments, the procession left the masjid. When Baba came to the steps, ushers made proclamation. The devotees would do bhajans with tal, mritan, veena, chipli and shambles blissfully at that place. The devotees walked with delight, holding the decoration and banners. On both sides of Baba stood persons holding whisk and fanning him. People followed their shawls and cloths and spread them on the way, like carpets on which Baba was made to walk, supported by devotees' hands. Other waved whisk over him. Tatyaba held his left hand while Mahalsapati held his right. Bapu Sahib Jog held an umbrella as a canopy over his head, and in this manner the retinue proceeded to the Chavadi. In the front, in front was that copper-colored horse which was called Shamakaran. He was richly decorated and caparisoned, and bells jingled on his feet. The staff-bearers walked ahead, proclaiming Sai's name. The canopy holders held on to it. The whisk were continuously waved by the whisk holders. The musical instruments and the gongs played, and the devotees made the air resound with salutation. Thus the devotees collectively proceeded, and the ushers lovingly made proclamations. The ringing sound of the Lord's name was continuous. The tal, janj, mirdan were harmonious. The devotees moved collectively to the beat of time, shouting and proclaiming. Thus the devotees and the bhajan singers, full of delight, shouting the Hosna's cry of adoration to Sai on the way, arrived at the crossroads. The instrument tal, jhanj, dol and gol vehemently played. The surge of Sai's name was emphatic, and the bhajan was loving and delightful. Men and women walked with him, each filled with joy of the bhajans, shouting Sai's name, the sound of which reverberated in the sky. The sky resounded with the playing of the instrument. The onlookers' hearts were filled with joy. The Chavadi procession was thus worth watching. The splendor and the decorations were incomparable. As he stood facing the Chavadi, luster like the sun in the earlier morning or late evening sky shone like the heated purified gold from Shri's countenance. The luster of the face at the time shone like the spreading light of the early dawn. It was like the core of pure consciousness who would not take its benefit. A darshan that time was blessed. His face was aglow with diffuse red color. He stood facing the north with concentrating mind and seemed to be calling someone. The musical instruments and the gongs resounded. Maharaj stood full of delight, moving his right hand up and then bringing it down, on and off at that time. Dikshit, a leading devotee, came with a silver platter filled with many flowers and showered the flowers on Baba's whole body and on and off at that time. Kaka Sahib kept on offering rose petals mixed with red pernicious powder on Sai's forehead with love and devotion. Thus, when Kaka showered those rose petals mixed with red pernicious powder, or the gong, janj, and tal sounded one beat, and the musical instruments played at their best. The villagers who were Baba's devotees came for darshan with great love. At that time, Baba's cast of countenance, emitting a reddish glow, was marvelously evident. Looking at that play of luster on his face, the eyes of the onlookers widened with surprise. Their loving minds felt abundance of joy and were freed easily from the toil of existence. Oh, that wonderful divine brilliance! Its beauty was like that of the rising sun. The gong and other instruments resounded in front of him for a long time. For more than 1.5 hours, Baba stood at one place, facing north, moving his right hand up and down constantly. His complexion gold like the core of the ketki flower, with a slightly reddish luster on the face, cannot be described by the tongue. It has to be savored by the eyes only. Sometimes Mahalsapati began to dance, being possessed by some divinity, but all were surprised to see that Baba's concentration was not the least disturbed. On Baba's right stood Bhagat Mahalsapati, holding the hem of Baba's kapni very lightly, and to the left Tatya Kote walked with a lantern in his hand. How enjoyable was the celebration, which was nothing but a glorious exposition of love and devotion. The rich and the great gathered to watch the marvel of it. Self-luminosity brightened the extremely fair complexion. The moonlight brilliant countenance had just a little reddish glow. People filled their eyes with this incredible beauty. Baba walked slowly. The gathering of devotees walked on both sides with tremendous love and devotion, which choked everyone with exuberant delight. Such a celebration is no longer there for anyone to behold. Those days and those times are gone. Let us bring solace to ourselves with the memories. All the musical instruments played tumultuously. Hosanas were shouted on the way. Taking Baba on the asin at the Chavadi, he was offered a grand worship puja. The Chavadi's ceiling was decorated with a white evening from which the chandeliers and lamps were suspended, whose light was reflected in the mirrors. The whole place was brilliantly lit up. All the assembled devotees gathered closely at the Chavadi. Then Tatyaba spread out the asan and helped Baba by holding him to sit on it. On that excellent asan, which was prepared, a bolster was placed at the back for him to lean on. When Baba settled in his seat, he was asked to wear Angarka clock. Beautiful apparels were placed on his body, and he was worshipped with great joy. The aarti was done at the top of their voice, and he was presented with garlands and boutiques. Adorning his hands with sandalwood paste and perfumes, ornaments were placed on him after expensive clothes. A crown was placed on his head, and they stared at him. Sometimes Sometimes it was beautiful golden crown, sometimes a lovely turban embroidered with gold and bejeweled tuft on which shone a plum of feathers. Round his neck were diamonds and rubies. Then a white pearl necklace was put round his neck. All these ornaments and clothes were brilliantly lit up by the lights. On the forehead was drawn a vertical black line of fragrant musk, and as per the tradition among the Vaishnavas, a round black tilak was also put on the forehead. The pure velvet cloak fully embroidered with zari was placed on the shoulders, and if it slipped, it was immediately gathered together on both sides. Similarly, the crown or the turban was held aloft over his head and placed gently so that Baba was not aware of it. Whatever it was, the crown or the turban, so as soon as it touched his head, Baba threw it away. Though this was a great anxiety for them, their loving eagerness was very powerful. Did Sai, who knew the innermost thoughts of all, not know of this surreptitious action of the devotees? By considering their love and affection, he deliberately kept quiet. He who has the glorious splendor of realization of Brahma, of what avail is a full embroidered zari cloak or ornaments, or of what avail is the embellished crown to him who is radiating his inner peace? Even so, the devotees adorned Baba with a variety of ornaments and applied a beautiful tilak on his forehead mixed with saffron. Some put diamond and pearl necklaces round his neck, and some drew tilak on his forehead. Thus the sort of the devotees went on. How wonderful it all looked when the devotees had completed dressing and bedecking Baba after the crown was on his head and the pearl necklace shone around his neck. Nana Sahib Nimorkar held the white umbrella, which moved in a circle on its supporting stick with its pendles and tassels. Bapu Sahib washed the Guru's feet with great love. He offered the oblation of water with great devotion and offered puja with all the rites. Next, he placed a silver dish platter with an edge and placed Baba's feet in it and washed them with great reverence. The hands were cleaned with perfume afterwards. Taking a small bowl of saffron, he applied the fragrant paste to the hands. He offered betel leaf in Baba's palms. Sai looked pleased. When Baba was on his seat, Tatyaba and others kept standing. Holding Baba's hand, they helped him to be seated and bowed at his feet respectfully. The Chavadi, a pure and holy place, polished like marble, was the meeting place. The old and the young, who were loving, fastened at Shri's feet. When Baba's lustrous form graced the seat, leaning against the bolster, the whisk and fans gently moved on both sides. Madhavrao crumbled the tobacco into powder and immediately prepared the chillum and passed it into Tatyaba's hands, who took the first puff. After the tobacco was ignited and a flame appeared, Tatya placed it in Baba's hand. After Baba's first long pull gave it to Bhagat. Then in cycle coming to Bhagat, Shama and Tatyaba from time to time till it was smoked out. Blessed it was, and how fortunate we, the living, could not be compared in the service that it rendered, though it was inanimate. Its penance was arduous too. It was treaded upon in its infancy by the potter, later suffering cold and heat while drying. Finally it was baked in the fire. But its destiny, it was touched by Baba, then baked again in the dhuni. Afterwards it was anointed with colored powder and fragrance. It was blessed by the kiss of Baba's lips. Enough camphor, saffron and sandalwood paste was smudged on both hands of Baba. After putting garlands of flowers around his neck, the devotees offered him nosegays, small bunches of flowers. He whose face was ever smiling and who always looked with love and compassion, how could he have any pride at being decked like this? He allowed all this only to show regards to the feelings of the devotees. For him whose body is adorned with devotion and who is bedecked with the ornament of peace, of what use are these worldly garlands and jewels? Of what use is an emerald necklace for him who is the embodiment of non-attachment? But if offered, he inclined his neck to fulfill the desires of the devotees. Glittering garlands of gold, emeralds, and pearls shone round his neck. They were made of 8 or 16 rows mixed with topaz. Garlands of jasmine and basil, they were put round his neck, trailed up to his feet. His neck shone with unprecedented brilliance from the garlands of pearls, together with the emerald garland studded in gold. There was a gold gorget which hung over Baba's heart. The black tilak on the forehead had an enchanting beauty. How can he be called a fakir who looked like an effulgent descendant of Vishnu? Above him was the canopy and the whisk, and his head was adorned by the zari embroidered cloak. Generally joked with the great love, taking the 5-wick lamp in his hand, would wave it over Baba in the midst of the din and clamour of the auspicious music of the instrument. After offering the 5 oblation together with the puja, then taking the abundantly filled 5 burning lamps with niranjan and camphor, he waved it round Baba. Then after the aarti ended, one by one, all the devotees prostrated with 8-fold obeisance, surrendering to Baba, and left for their homes. When Tatyaba took Baba's permission to leave for his home after offering chilam, aptar and rose water, Baba used to say, "Take care of me. Go if you are going, but during the night from time to time inquire about me," saying, "Very well." Tatyaji would leave the Chavadi and go home. Then when all the people had left, Baba would himself untie the bundle and spread the folds of the dhoti, making his bed with his own hands. Then he himself spread 60 to 65 white sheets on one on top of the other, and Baba then slept on them. Here ends the story of the Chavadi as it used to happen. Now the story that still remains will be told in the next chapter. I beg forgiveness for the listeners. From the listeners, as Sai's greatness is unfathomable. Though I wish to tell it briefly, I could not limit it, for it is all very significant. Now the story of Sai's cooking vessels and whatever other stories that have been left out will be narrated in the next chapter. Please be reverentially attentive to always remember the Guru, that is a selfish motive of Hemad, to enable him to achieve whatever is desired in this world as also in the other. He can achieve all the 4 goals of life by prostrating at the feet of the Guru, as they are all contained therein. May there be well-being. This is the end of the 37th chapter of Shri Sai Samatha Satcharitra, written by the devotee Hemadpant, implied by the saint and virtuous people, called Description of the Chavadi. This is offered to Shri Sadguru Sainath. May there be auspiciousness.